Hey, this is Steven from Steven's Classic Garage, and welcome to my first Rabbit video in a while. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about what's going to happen here in the Rabbit, but just to recap my last video, so as you know, I had some issues, the video should be live, I had some issues with the Mustang painting again. That clear is just not hardening up. I sprayed a panel last weekend, Sunday, and I set it outside for a week to harden. In direct sunlight, so I painted on Sunday, set it out on Monday, and in direct sunlight with the panel being over 140 degrees Fahrenheit, I would say. You can't even touch it, you can't even hold your hand to it for a very long time. It's still soft. The clear ended up still being soft, and you could still push your thumbnail into it, and even the bottom side of the panel, which was only a 2-coat, I believe, was only a 2-coat of clear. That guy is still also soft. Not as soft. It's a little bit harder to put your fingernail in it, but you can get your fingernail just as deep. So maybe it would take like maybe 2 months or something for it to harden. And if it would eventually harden, I would be okay with it. But you know, how long would it take it to harden? Because if it takes, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, that's okay, right? Because if I spray the panel and I set it outside, the idea is I set it outside and I spray all the other panels before I bring it in and cut and buff. And so that would be, I would do the trunk, so that's 1 week, the hood, that's another week, one fender, that's another week, the other fender, the door, the other door, and then the rest of the car. So that's at least 7 weeks. So on the 8th week, I would cut and buff. So it's 8 weeks. So right now we're at 5 weeks, so it's another 3 more weeks. So we'll see. I'll talk to a rep tomorrow, because basically that's what I have. And if he can assure me that this stuff will solidify within 8 weeks, then that should be okay. Then I can just move on and wait till it lasts to cut and buff. Alright, so I haven't really done much on this car. Let's show you a little bit. I've done a little bit for drivability. So number one is I put a new shifter knob on it. So here's my new shift knob. It is indeed an 8-ball, as you can see there, the 8-ball. And it just so happened that I threaded this. And by the way, this is I believe it's a 12 by 1.5. I have the tap inside my room, so I will also show you guys the tap, because there's some very mixed information on what this actually is. So I knew it was an M12, but I didn't know the pitch, because on some websites like haus, it said in the US it said 1.75, and some other places it said 1.5, and I didn't look inside the manual, which probably would have been another good idea. So what I did is I just took out my tap set, and it has a pitch gauge on it, and it is indeed, I believe, a 1.5, not a 1.75. But I will post it in the description of this video what the tap size is for this actual shift knob. So go ahead and check that out. And that was the original shift ball over here. So this one was way smaller, and actually it does have threads in it, but the threads are too big for this. So what would actually happen is it would just spin on the shaft, which was nice because you could spin it, which is cool. So when you move your hand around, it doesn't untwist the ball. And another thing, also, I didn't do anything to get it to where the 8 lined up perfectly. It just so happened to be that way. If you look down here, if I bring it down into fourth, so you can see that it just so happened to line straight up. Now, I didn't really do anything for that to happen. It just so happened that that's the way that it ended up, which is super cool, because usually you would have to tap it, and then to get it to line up, you'd like push a piece of paper down there in the bottom, and then you would put some glue in there, and then you would thread this down, and maybe put some like wax on top so it doesn't stick, or some wax on top of the thread here, and then go all the way down to the thread, and then go all the way down till it's straight, wait for it to cure, then turn it off, and then now it's going to be hard. It's going to hit that hard glue at the end, which I might do on the Mustang. because I do plan on putting another 8-ball on the Mustang and having all my vehicles have the 8-ball because I really like it. So I have another dated 8-ball. I might put this 8-ball on the Mustang and then use the other dated 8-ball on this one. So that's what I got here, and it's way bigger, it's nicer, it fits perfectly on my hand. I don't think it's a real 8-ball, I think it's a fake one, but still, it's nice. And then another thing, I got some clips. I don't know if you guys can see that. There you go. I got some clips off of these parts I purchased a while back from a cabriolet. And they were black. I painted them white. Obviously it's supposed to be cream color, so I'll see if I can find some cream color. It's supposed to be that color. It's supposed to be the color of the roof, which is a cream. So I'll see if I could find that. But I got those guys because these were originally, they didn't have any, and these were like flapping all over the place. And it was super annoying. So now it doesn't flap. But I still got to print a spinner for this guy. So that's one, and then maybe a cap or a switch thing to go in here. That would be nice. And then somehow stick this thing on. This thing's vibrating like crazy. Other than that, that's pretty much it that I've done, and some of the little things that I have to do here and there. But the main reason why I wanted to make this video, oh, and also obviously the dent is still there. I put everything back on. I pushed it a little bit out with my knuckles, just hitting it with my knuckles, but it still needs some more work. So another thing, also I need to grab a piece in here that I want to do, and I have some equipment coming in, and I think it's going to be some really interesting engineering stuff. So basically what I want to do is I want to start getting ready for this thing to be turboed. So I'm going to call this series kind of the road to turbo. So I want two things mainly. Two things to be checked and set up before I do turbo. Number one, temperature. So I want to make sure that there's adequate cooling and everything like that on this car before I do any sort of stuff like that. So that's number one, and number two is brakes. So I want to do either brakes first or second, doesn't really matter. But the brakes I want to have done, do either a swap or figure out why they are the way they are before I put before I put the turbo kit on. So number one is that, they go all the way down the floor, and then you have like from the floor down a little bit further, and that's where all your braking is, which really I would like to have the full travel. So like the full resolution of all the way down the floor, I'm basically locked up, but I could kind of finesse it. Right now, the difference between locking up and skidding and not is basically like a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch, about an eighth of an inch of travel. So that's not very good. So I need to figure that out. So obviously what I'm going to do, I'm going to do all the free stuff first, bleed the brakes, do all that stuff. I think the pads, I checked the pads are nice. It does need new rotors. The rotors are warped, so I do need to do that. Then the next thing, if that doesn't work, that's pretty much all the free stuff. It's got fluid in it, everything looks good. Next one would be replace a master cylinder. And then if that doesn't work, then maybe start to change some of the hardware. I have not checked the back drums, so those probably need to be done over. But the fronts, they have a lot of meat on those pads. So, and then obviously number two is temperature. So I have a big issue when I'm driving this thing down into Sunnyvale. About 40 minutes in the morning, not so much, but in the afternoon, depending on when I leave. I get hit, for example, this last week I hit over an hour and a half of traffic, and it's sucking in hot air into the cabin. Now, basically inside here, it has some couple holes. Let me see if I could show you. Let me just put the camera down really quick. Yeah, so there's a couple holes in here. I don't want to go on it too much because we're getting close to our 11 1/4 minutes. So there you can see one hole there. You can see another hole there. I looked on my neighbor's car, and he has a piece of rubber that closes up, but when there's water there and there's weight, the rubber opens. It's really, really thin rubber. But for mine, I think I might just close it up and have like 2 or 3 holes, put like a little bowl underneath it, and use some double back tape, and have some tiny little holes in it so I could keep. Because what I think is happening is that there's a lot of engine heat going over there. And another thing, I would like to line the inside of the intake so there's not so much heat. Right now there's massive amounts of heat being transferred from the engine inside. So I would like to have a low convection material on the inside that the air will not be able to cool down as it runs inside. Then maybe also get this guy closer. Another thing is the grill in the front is obviously blocked. That's how they designed it. It's blocked here and blocked over here. I'd like to change that. And then there's another portion down there. There is a vent. I don't know if you can see. I can barely see, but there's a vent down here where my fingers are going in. You can see it from the back side here down there. And this guy usually goes in there, but this guy is obviously fake. It's closed. And that's right in front of my radiator. That should be closed. So it should be like this one, where this is good. This one's open. As you can see there, same exact style, but that one's open. So what I want to do is I want to explore CFD, and I've always wanted to explore computational fluid dynamics. So I'm going to model this in CAD, and then open it up and close it and see how that affects aerodynamics. So I'm going to open this guy up, and also I have some sensors coming in. I have a temperature sensor that I'm gonna, with 2 probes on it, that I'm gonna place in multiple places, and so we're gonna do some of that this week. And then also I have an airflow sensor, and we could also use that guy this week to see how we're improving, to see if we're doing any improvements. So stay tuned. A lot